Now you can see on the screen the watercolor and the photo I took that served as my reference. It is the building of the old port of Barcelona, which is right next to the famous statue of Christopher Columbus. Well, look, the first thing I want to talk to you about is composition, as I believe it is the basic aspect that you need to address first when facing your watercolor. You have to think not about copying the photo exactly as you see it, but about how you can improve the elements in it and make them interesting. Of course, there may be photographs that we already like as they are, and instead of changing elements and thinking about composition, we would only need to think about the colors we will use or the texture. But as you can see, this is not the case. It is clear that this photograph needs some magical touches, right? Let's first talk about the placement of the elements. To beautify this urban scene further, I decided to add another palm tree on the left side next to the building, and on the contrary, remove that bulky streetlight in the foreground, and instead place two streetlights in perspective on the right side to fill the empty space. With a similar criterion, I reorganized the traffic signals so that they wouldn't be as clustered as in the photo, placing two on each side of the building to free up the foreground a bit more, and thus focus more attention on the figures. I also improved the background plan on the right by leaving more space between the trees and the building so that the sail hotel, which is named for its shape, as you can see looks like a sailing vessel, stands out more. And now speaking of the figures, notice that in the photo they all appear very distant and clustered in the background, whereas in the watercolor, all the people are more distributed according to the needs of the composition. Keep in mind that for the figures within a watercolor, just like in any type of landscape, we also need to use aerial perspective, also called atmospheric perspective, which will give us depth through the proper use of colors and values, of course. That is, the figures that are farther away should be rendered with more neutral tones, grays, bluish hues, misty, and poorly defined, and making only brush strokes that create mass and a multitude of people, as you can see in the characters located in the background to the left. In contrast, the people located in the area on the right and also the solitary man you see in the center, being closer, already have more definition in their shapes and colors. Now, speaking of light, I wanted to create a sunset with low light to make this play of projected shadows in perspective, which is so interesting. The light source is located approximately to the right side of the building in the background, that of the Sail Hotel. Look, perspective and shadow projection is a much more technical topic, but once you understand how it works, it becomes easier to apply it intuitively, which is how it is usually done in this type of striking and impressionistic landscapes. Since we are not talking about hyperrealism here, we don't want to create a landscape that is super well defined or super mathematical, and it's clear that we are not going to start drawing a bunch of lines with a ruler on our watercolor paper. So, well, if I get motivated one day, I will make a series of videos so that everything can be better understood and we can apply it effectively with our intuition, already knowing what the topic is about. Lastly, another aspect I wanted to mention is the textures. You can appreciate, for example, that the entire main building is worked in wet, just like the projection of its shadow, to which I have added water splashes with my fingers to break the monotony that would be created if I left the color completely flat. Additionally, keep in mind that any edge line should be broken up, otherwise we would end up with completely cut and outlined lines, which is not considered very artistic. Well, let's move forward with the demo.